everybody to this, the launch of our 7 research papers. We're very excited that this moment has finally arrived after months of very hard work, both on the side of our researchers, who I'd like to thank them for that work, and also on the side of the Secretariat, who I've worked with as a team, and of course, Chris as well. So on that note, I'll pass over to Flore-Anne, please, if you wouldn't mind opening us up and getting us started.
Absolutely, Lynn. Thank you so much. And well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, and to all joining our session. I'm really delighted and honored to open this workshop that officially launches the 7 final research papers of the OECD Gender Inclusive Competition Policy Project. The fight for gender equity is one of the defining challenges of our age. Although women, as we all know, make up half of the world's population, women's paid work generates only 37% of the global GDP. We now know that the current crisis has actually exacerbated pre-existing structural inequalities and gender norms, making it even more difficult for women and women-run businesses to catch up. The competition world and related policy have largely been, so to speak, gender blind, trusting competition and markets to ensure discrimination were taken care of, although existing statistics or evidence tend to show a less perfect picture. In this respect, the relationship between gender and competition policy has to date largely been unexplored. Now, with thanks to the support of the Canadian government, the OECD Gender Inclusive Competition Policy Project has contributed to the broader OECD effort to address these challenges by supporting our members and partners in effectively mainstreaming gender consideration into our competition work. We launched this project in 2018 with an initial discussion and paper on the nexus between gender equality and competition policy. With Canadian government support, we were able to launch the OECD Gender Inclusive Competition Policy Project shortly after. The objective of this 2-year project is to develop practical guidance on how to build a gender inclusive competition policy. And today's agenda for this workshop will discuss the findings of 7 selected research papers that were chosen to provide an intellectual basis framework for developing this guidance. The paper are actually discussing important questions, and I will just name 3 to kick off our discussion. The first one is increasing the number of women in management position correlated with a reduction, or actually not a reduction, in collusive behavior and increased compliance with antitrust laws? That's one of the first questions. The second, can a gender lens be applied to competition investigations markets? And last but not least, how can competition authorities better coordinate across government to ensure the development and application of gender-sensitive competition policy? This includes, for example, legal framework in which competition authorities operate. So I look forward very much to exploring this question with you today in this workshop. Over the coming month, as I just mentioned, we will build on this excellent research to develop OECD guidance for competition agency with respect to gender. But before I close, I would like to say actually 3 big thank yous. The first, on behalf of the OECD, I would like to thank the 7 research groups for their commitment, their rigor, their ingenuity. Each of you have really made a significant contribution to this new and emerging field of work. I would also like to thank the project review committees, Nadia Vassos from the Canadian Competition Bureau, Chris Pike, who originated this work in the OECD Competition Division and is now a partner and managing director at Fideres LLP and an associate at the Center for Competition Policy at the University of East Anglia. And last but not least, Nia Georgi, senior analyst at Compass Lexicon. On that note, I said that there will be a third thank you, and I would like to thank very much Ellen Creighton from the Canadian Competition Bureau. Without you, Ellen, I know that this project wouldn't have started, so big thanks to you. I look forward to the discussion and hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening to everybody who's joining us from around the world. My name, as mentioned, is Ellen Creighton, and I lead the International Affairs team at the Competition Bureau in Canada. I want to begin by letting you know that I'm joining you from the Ottawa-Gatineau region, and I want to begin by acknowledging that I'm on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. So just to tell a bit of the story, we became part of this project after we needed to provide an analysis of how gender applies to our work. And we didn't know what to say. We couldn't find much when we searched around either. We didn't have enough knowledge or data to fully understand how our work affects different genders, let alone people with intersecting identity factors. And by extension, what interventions we could make to be more effective in our work to enforce and promote competition. And so we began a journey to raise the questions, to encourage ideas, to examine the issues, and to find new insights, evidence, and best practices. Luckily, we found a partner in the OECD and its ability to bring people together. And we're thankful that there was such a huge response to the call for papers. We strongly support the need for research to take up this question rather than ignoring it or thinking that it doesn't apply or there's nothing to see here. To move beyond conjecture, instinct, stereotypes, and theory, and to provide part of the groundwork and framework for an evidence-based approach that applies to the work that we do. We're responsible for enforcing competition law and advocating for competition for the benefit of all Canadians and not a subset. And in order to do that effectively, we need to understand the gaps in our analysis, including how various groups of people may experience markets and competition differently. So the research we'll discuss today represents a huge milestone in this journey. The research teams have important recommendations that can be considered and implemented by agencies. And these insights apply to our enforcement, advocacy, compliance, and outreach activities. They'll allow us to be able to move beyond theory to be able to apply the lessons learned to our daily work. And it couldn't come at a better time. As we begin to recover from the pandemic, we need to work toward inclusive growth and building back better. And while we're moving forward today, it's not the end of the journey. There is still so much for us as competition authorities, businesses, practitioners, academics, and all of us to learn and apply when it comes to understanding the effects of competition law and policy as they're experienced by diverse individuals and communities. We hope to continue these discussions beyond gender. We want to broaden to other areas of diversity and inclusion and understand the intersections so that we can be more accessible and inclusive. There's a lot of scope to expand to other areas to develop insights that apply when considering the experiences of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, people with disabilities, and other equity-seeking and deserving groups. From the Canadian perspective, our work is supported by complementary policies and tools, like how we're required to apply gender-based analysis plus to our work. This serves as a guide to help us develop more inclusive approaches. And it's this requirement and this tool, GBA Plus, that kicked off the conversation in Gatineau in the first place. So I know that many other jurisdictions have other drivers for inclusive policy, but I do want to underline the importance of systems, culture, and commitment. There was a system prompt for us to begin these discussions. There was funding available to do this research. Our success from here will depend on what we do with these insights. For too long, we've relied on intention alone as though that is enough. We have to match that through action. And that's why I'm also looking down the road to the next stage of the journey, which is the Toolkit for competition authorities. And so to look ahead on that journey, fundamentally, our success will be found through our action, through our awareness, through our learning, through building new systems, expertise, and relationships, through allocating resources and funding, to actually doing the work of inclusion at the outset and not as an afterthought. So today we are taking action. We're progressing on our journey through learning. We'll learn better ways to understand market dynamics, to improve our ability to collect and analyze disaggregated data, ultimately ways of doing our job better. The decisions and approaches we take as competition law enforcers matter, and they affect people. By striving for inclusive competition, we can protect and promote competition for businesses and consumers more effectively. And I have to say that I have been waiting for today, and I know that so many others have too. So over to you, Lynn, to send us on our way into breakout sessions. Thanks everyone so much.
Thank you, Flore-Anne, and also thank you, Ellen, for setting the context for us and getting us off to a good start. You will be asked to go into breakout sessions, and I know Angelique will put up a slide that shows you how to do that in the bottom right. It's one of the options you'll see on the bottom of your screen. You will be invited to either pose your questions in the chat or by raising your hand. If your question is not responded to, if you run out of time, please don't forget, we do have a LinkedIn group to continue the discussion, and we encourage you to be active within that. You can post your question there. Also, during these breakouts, I really encourage you to be active, to question the recommendations, to question the research. This is the first time we've really gone public with it. They will be the basis for our toolkit, and we want to make sure that they're sound. But we also want to make sure that we haven't forgotten something. So your contributions in the discussions really is a fundamental part of this process. And on that note, Angelique will open up the breakout rooms, and the slide will come up for us to see how to go there. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in my breakout room.